What is your response to that?
You really want me to answer you?
I do.
Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, being interviewed by a journalist. And the question the journalist was asking, was so stereotypical of how people interview Black women, interview Caribbean leaders, and those kinds of internalized biases we need to recognize when we put in educational material out there and cultural material. And as AI is not acultural. It comes to us with all kinds of biases and prejudices. And
she is an award-winning Caribbean journalist, new media innovator, and ICT blogging pioneer. She's recognized as a Global Woman Techmakers Ambassador, Google Digital Skills, World Pulse Digital, and Small Island Innovators Ambassador, a UNESCO and National Geographic educator and independent scholar. She invented the newest creative genre, the multimedia microepic, in the midst of the pandemic panic.
We are going to be losing more than an entire generation that we have not tabled and has not been on the discussion board at all. For instance, all the biases that we complain that media carries, they would say, okay, shh. You're kind of shaking up the pot. There was so much terror in that thought of migration. This is how children interpret media and education, and for empowering civil society, empowering women to take charge of their.
Outspoken, fiery, and creative, Dr. Chris Rampersad discusses digital deletion, AI bias, and retooling the banking, education, governance, NGO, media, and cultural sectors towards developing a creative roadmap for Caribbean cultural survival and re-engineering education for the digital age.
I can say that 20 years later, we are still there. Teachers and the parents have to recognize how to deal with that kind of trauma. We have none of the facilities through the banking sector with our own environment. We had been watching with our tongues hanging out. So when I presented this as a best case example to one of the international forum, one of the Caribbean bankers put up their hand and said, but this is illegal, And this is the kind of crap that we continue to be working with. I am talking about the understanding the culture of politics, the culture of how we do business. We did a lot of training across the Caribbean for women, for leadership, which I see none of those discussions are on the table. And those are built-in biases and prejudices that we convey through media. I was always trying to make education from the high tower more accessible to the rest of the community. So it's trying to blend that journalism into education, whereas so when we talk about media, about education through media, these are some of the discussions that we should be tabling, and not just in terms of talk, because we have plenty talk happening, as you well know, is moving that talk to action.
But join me, Michelle Marius, for the ICT Pulse podcast and find out more updates from Dr. Chris Rampersad on her social media channels and website, www.chrisrampersad.com.
The superpower is thinking. Someone asked me to complete the sentence I wanted to be, and I am. I return wholeheartedly. The secret tools and research. The weapons of mass destruction, multimedia, words, images, music, visual mapping, graphic, sound. From the cross currents of mass culture, mass communications, mass education, she traverses 5 continents and 3 realms. Her quest? Find a place where knowledge lives, even if we all cease to be.
She eludes the important dark forces who have a warrant out for her arrest on the crime of reading. Mystical beings of science and science with potent powers to heal befriend her. Confronted walls of prejudice and pollution, racism, vitriol and violence, turmoil and terrorism, she defies the poet's claims. No man is an island, but woman is. Spokesperson for woman, the empowered kind. I land in the wars of the world. Choose us or them, heart or mind. She meanders secretive and treacherous contortions in her heart's arteries to unearth historical distortions. Inspired by past dream stories, with Ma as her muse,
The wealth is a man.
she sets out on a perilous journey in search of the magical flower with the power to restore sight to the world, and invents a new creative genre, the multimedia micro-epic of the Anthropocene.